All righty, Vince. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Woo! Wow. I thought we kind of eased into rapid fire already.
It did kind of feel like it a little bit, but
Let's go.
all right, here we go. So, Riley Leonard asked on ESPN on the field last night about Marcus Freeman's halftime message to get him going.
He said, history is written by conquerors, and we're holding the pen. We decide how we want to write our history, and I'm a firm believer in whether you think you can or you can't do something, you're right. We believe that we can do it, and we went out there and did it.
I will say it was much easier to hear on TV. Like that band was really drowning him out. But the line, in case you couldn't hear it, history is written by the conquerors, and we're holding the pen. Rate that scale of 1 to 10, Vince.
Oh, that's a 27, and I know that it kind of stems from the Manti Te'o speech that he gave in the documentary, but that was way back at week 2. And my point is, yes, it kind of falls in line with what Te'o said. And he handed him the pen, the whole thing.
I kind of remember that, but I don't remember it very specifically. I did watch those episodes, but I don't.
Yeah, he said it was something similar. It was like, you have a chance to write your own history.
Okay.
And then he handed Marcus Freeman the pen. And it wasn't quite that quote. It wasn't quite the, history is written by the conquerors and we have the pen. Like that wasn't
right.
That wasn't the exact quote, but
I have heard some form of history is, written
right.
by the victors, the conquerors,
right.
whoever before. Yeah.
But that particular quote in that moment, it's very reminiscent for me. And just to throw like a Notre Dame spin on it, right? You got the win one for the Gipper speech. Like that happened, like the actual event happened weeks before, years before he actually used it in a halftime speech. Like that happened week 2 this year.
Yeah.
And he waited until January 9th to use
pull it out
in a halftime speech. Like that is just perfect timing for the moment. And not only that, but the actual quote itself, you might as well just chisel that crap right into the wall of that new building. They're building.
This feels to me,
I'm telling you,
like if they win the whole thing, it's like that Tim Tebow speech.
Exactly right.
You are going to see a hard work. You remember all that, and they built the statue of Tim Tebow, and that was part of the statue of that. That whole speech that Tebow gave about. After they had lost and the turnaround that they were going to make and all this different stuff. And obviously they go on to win a national championship. And that feels like whether it's out in front of Notre Dame Stadium or over there outside the Goog and the practice facility, wherever it happens to be.
That new building, baby, right
they
there.
Win this whole thing like that. That needs to be up there. That needs to be inscribed in stone for the rest of time.
Yes.
History is written by the conquerors, and we're holding the pen.
That just gives you
how can
chills.
You go wrong?
I'm sorry. That's like I'm not a big fan of like some people just love quotes and like.
I know you're not a speech guy. You're not a speech guy.
I'm not. But that is.
I don't know. Like, did your coaches in high school did you get like quotes and speeches or any of that different kind of stuff?
A little bit. I'll never forget one time the principal came in and he was this big buff guy, and he's trying to motivate everybody and he's talking about the kickoff team. When you kick off, whoever goes down and lays somebody out, I'm going to buy you a pizza. Like that was his thing. And so like, we would just make fun of that.
Put it in stone. I'm going to buy you a pizza.
Yeah. We would just make fun of that for years. Like, oh, if you do that, I'll buy you a pizza. Like it. So you draw that fine line between like a motivational speech and just sounding ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
And that quote for me gave me goosebumps. Like that hit home, and so
it's got to hit the right note. It can't just be stupid cheese, which I agree with completely.
Yeah. Because you've seen them. You've seen the coaches that just get just a little bit too much cheese on the cracker. You know what I mean? And I was never a big speech guy. I would tell everybody what they needed to know. And
we never got speeches when I was in high school. We just had coaches like, "Oh, work harder." Like that was the speech.
Yeah.
Work harder. Be better. It's like might as well be Riley Leonard's mom. It's like you suck. That's the kind of speech.
I can't believe they rolled that back out yesterday. Oh, and they used her quote when she's wearing a blue blouse. Like that was clearly from last year when they originally, did that whole interview. Like you couldn't even hey, we'd love you to have a quote on that again. Could you wear Notre Dame colors? Like,
right.
God, that was bad. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's 10 out of 10 for me as well.
It's way out there.
Yeah. Perfect. And like you said, the timing, like saving that for just the right, like he didn't use it, at halftime of Louisville or, whenever it happened to be. He saved that, had it in his back pocket.
I just love it.
He's ready to go. When the chips are down, tell the boys,
Yeah, we're going for the Gipper. Like,
that's right.
I know that's not an original quote from Marcus Freeman. Like, I get it.
Doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
It came out of his mouth.
Right.
And that's the first thing that Riley Leonard talked about when he was asked about it.
Yep.
Which makes it perfect. So Marcus Freeman on the field afterwards asked about how his team managed to overcome and pick up the win.
They're a bunch of savages. They're built different. I told them they're built different. And I'm so proud of them. Just what they've accomplished. The way they've stayed together and find ways to improve, and they play for each other. They're a special group.
These guys are a bunch of savages. Who is your savage of the night, Vince DiDario?
It's Riley Leonard. And I'm sticking with it because Riley Leonard has always been my X factor in all of these games because this team is going to this team is always going to win or lose based on the play of Riley Leonard. And I have yet to see a game where Riley Leonard just goes off and they lose. I have yet to see that. When he plays well, they play well. And he always seems to find a way to win. And I feel like that's a microcosm of this entire team. They find a way to win. When we thought that, there's 48 seconds left and Penn State's got 2 timeouts and they got a chance to run down, go down the field, kick this field goal, win the game. Christian Gray finds a way to win. Mitch Jeter finds a way to win. Riley Leonard rolls out when you think they're just going to run the ball to run the clock. He rolls out to his left and then finds Greathouse for another 8 yards or whatever that play ended up being. They find a way to win. So it's Riley Leonard for me.
I mean, it's hard to argue against it because, I think that, that we've both been, in this camp of, look, I mean, you know what my stance on this whole thing has been all season since whenever it was, stats are for losers, like I'm not going to get wrapped up.
Right.
And obviously I don't think that there's, zero meaning in any stats. I'm just telling you, that's not what you can focus on. You do have to look like at what's beating inside the chest. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to disagree that Riley Leonard was a savage last night and that he's been a savage all season. My savage of last night, though, is Jeremiyah Love, essentially for the same reasons. Like the guy came in there and he's been hurt since USC. We know he's been hurt since USC. And, they told him not to be jumping over guys last night. So what's he do? He jumps because he had to. He needed to. He needed to keep the chains moving forward. And, the guy is practically standing straight up and Jeremiyah Love just goes straight over him with that knee brace on. And then the touchdown run of 2 yards again, Jesse texted me this morning, the video of it. And he's like, I think I've watched this 100 times today. And I was, in the other room this afternoon, rewatching those touchdown, the touchdown drives of the second half. And I must have watched that Jeremiyah Love run at least 10 times because I'm like, hold it. How many guys did he break tackles? How did he keep going forward? With Abdul Carter standing right there, the best defensive player on the field, he took him into the end zone and he it's like a total of 5 guys. He broke tackles and and again, he's hit 2 yards deep in the backfield. And he ends up, with that touchdown run. It was amazing. I'm watching Good Morning Football this morning, and Manti Te'o, at the end of the week, Manti is always on, and so he was on with them this morning. And he had his Notre Dame logo on, and Kyle Brandt, who does the angry runs all the time for the NFL, he wouldn't call it an angry run because it was a college play. It wasn't an NFL play. Not part of the brand, but it's a savage run will do, and that's exactly what it was. So
yeah, you're not wrong.
Savage run by Jeremiyah Love. He's my savage of the night.
I think the best part about this game, it wasn't one or two guys that won this game. Like you said, like we talked about earlier, there is
everybody who was on the field made some kind of savage play.
I mean, there is an exhausted list of guys that made plays that if they don't make those plays, they don't win that game. So
yeah,
it's great.
That's exactly right. Like I, went through the heroes list earlier, and there's a lot of guys who qualified. Speaking of Jeremiyah Love, fill in the blank. Love saying after the game last night, quote, "We want to play Ohio State after beating Penn State," is blank.
I don't like it. It's upsetting to me. I don't like it. Like, why would you give fresh meat to the lion? Like, that's not what you need to do. Like, you at Notre Dame are going to be the underdog regardless of who you play next week. Whoever wins the game tonight, you're going to be the underdog. Just play that role up, man. I can't stand when fans or players are like, bring on so-and-so. It usually doesn't end well. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's the case here, but why poke the bear in this particular scenario?
Steven says it's bulletin board for Texas. I mean, it's bulletin board material for both teams, obviously, because now, like, both teams know, like, either way, John says bring on Ohio State. I do like the confidence. Again, like, is it smart to say, but probably not out, saying it out loud. It's one thing to say it inside the building, but think about this. In Marcus Freeman's first 2 seasons, he played down to the wire games against Ohio State
with a fully healthy team
with his alma mater. What if he gets a chance in the national championship game to actually win that game? I love the mentality that Jeremiyah Love, like thinking about it probably in that way. Like maybe that salt is still in the wound from last year at Notre Dame Stadium, thinking that they should have won and all that kind of stuff. And after a classic game last night. So I love the mentality. But again, smartest thing to say.
Yeah, a bunch of microphones and or cameras in front of you. I don't know about this. Is not the same team that played Ohio State last year. And it's, or I'm sorry. Yeah. Notre Dame's not the same team. Ohio State's not the same team. Right. Notre Dame had every opportunity to win that game last year, and they didn't. And then Ohio State went and completely revamped their roster and spent $20 million bringing in new guy, or 200, whatever the number is, spent all kinds of money bringing in guys, and from the recruiting trail, because the Smith kid is really freaking good. And, it's 2 different groups now. It's not the same 2 groups. And,
well, I get what you're saying. It's not exactly the same, but there are a lot of guys from Notre Dame who have been a part of both of those losses.
Completely agree. I just think this is not the same Ohio State team. They're better than they were last year. And they beat you. They beat you last time with not as good of a team.
There were parts of this season I wasn't sure if they were better than last year.
Agreed.
These 2 playoff games
have
been better.
And let's see what they do tonight, right? Let's see how it goes
similarities for both of these teams as well. A loss propelled them to where they are right now. Different kind of loss, obviously, for Ohio State, losing to a rival and all that stuff. But those 2 losses have proved to be very big for both Notre Dame and Ohio State. No
doubt. And look, it's not going to make a difference in the game either way, just because of what somebody says. But I'd rather he didn't say it. How about that?
Okay. And like I said, I don't completely disagree, but I like the mentality. Which Irish win is bigger, Georgia last week or Penn State last night?
See, I don't know that there's a right answer to this question. And I've been thinking about it since you sent us the rundown. I've been thinking about this particular question the entire time, because I could make a case. Like if this was a speech and debate club, like I could make a case for either side and feel good about it. You know what I mean? Because in Georgia, you slayed the SEC giant, like the SEC champs, the team you couldn't beat, New Year's 6 jinx, like all of those things fell by the wayside when you beat Georgia. Okay. Fast forward to Penn State. I think Penn State's a better football team than Georgia was. At least they played like it when Notre Dame played them. And you won it a different way. you were down by double digits. You were down at halftime. You have never had this kind of a deficit the entire season, and you had to come back. You know, how do you respond to a 10-0 deficit? Well, you rattle off 17 in a row. You know what I mean? And then they score, and then you score, and it comes down to a last-second field goal, and you got to get that turnover, and like just all of the different things that happened last night make that game pretty massive too. And you had on the line going to the national championship. So, like I said, I could make a case for either one. I'm fence sitting on this one. I think they're both massive wins.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're going to look at just simple significance, the Penn State win is bigger because it's your first, like, you know, even though this is a 12-team format and you've got more playoff games, this is still Notre Dame's first college football playoff semifinal win, getting them to the national championship game. So that, you know, like just in terms of that, it's significant. But also, they don't get to the semifinal if they don't beat Georgia. And I think because, you know, again, like we're going to talk about James Franklin's track record here in a minute. Penn State's a really good team. And, you know, I will give them credit. They are little bit better than I thought they were. I felt like this would be a fairly hard-fought competitive game. But they were overall a better football team than I thought they would be. Now, how much of that goes to what Notre Dame had just been through, having to beat Georgia the week before, like the way the game ended up playing out last night. From like Notre Dame had to play two really physical games back to back, one against Georgia and one against Penn State. Penn State got a couple of cakewalks against SMU and Boise State, not nearly as physical, you know, so like in terms of bodies and resting and all that different kind of stuff. I think it's Georgia because Georgia is, you know, still just a season removed, 2 seasons, I guess now, from back-to-back national championships. And they are still, you know, one of the standard bearers in the sport because you've still got the same head coach. You do have a lot of those guys intact, and, you know, the recruiting is still really good there, you know. So I think it's Georgia for all the significance from ending 3+ decades of drought and the fact of who they are still right now and beating them to get to Penn State.
I'm not going to argue with you because like I said, I could go either direction, and I
wasn't going to
sit
the fence like you, Vince.
I'm a fence sitter on this one. I'm sitting squarely on the fence. I think they're both massive wins. Look, Notre Dame has won more New Year's Six games in the first week of 2025 than they did since 1993.
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
In a span of 7 days, they have 2 as opposed to the last 30 years. I mean, so this team's doing some pretty amazing things right now.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Penn State didn't have a wide receiver catch a pass last night.
That's wild. Like that stat was brought up numerous times last night in the show. And you know, that's a testament to what Notre Dame was able to do defensively. And we kind of talked about the fact that their wide receivers didn't necessarily scare us, you know, against Notre Dame secondary and things like that. But still, I mean, Drew Allar is an NFL prospect. He's supposedly a, you know, franchise QB. You would at least think that he would make them better and get the ball to them and get them involved and whatnot. But there was nobody open, Sean. There was nobody open.
And seems like a few times this week we kind of mentioned that we really now we didn't think that Notre Dame's secondary was just going to blank their wide receivers.
No,
tight ends and running backs got all the catch, but we felt like it was a really good matchup for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's secondary against that receiving corps, and it was a big part of why I felt like, you know, this was a game that Notre Dame should win, because I didn't feel like, you know, like limiting the explosive plays. I didn't feel like the explosive plays were going to come. Now, Warren hit some, Singleton hit some, you know, those are their 2 best playmakers, like we said, going into the game. But the fact that you shut out an entire wide receiving corps is just amazing.
Yeah.
And especially if the quarterback is really anywhere close to as good as he was supposed to be.
100%. And I can't remember a time when that happened, when they got no receptions, 0 receptions. I mean, that's not a great stat if you're a Penn State fan. You know, you can make all the excuses you want, but your wide receivers were a no-show. And your quarterback was a no-show in that regard. And again, we said this going into the game, Sean, if your best offensive player is your tight end, okay. I mean, and they still almost won the game.
Yeah.
But that's not going to win you a ton of games having your tight end as your best offensive player. He's really good, but you know what he didn't do? Score any touchdowns. So they did a good job.
We talked about this earlier in the show, but JWick13 talking about the Allar interception, saying after the game he was trying to throw it into the ground on that interception. That's just, I don't buy it. He makes that throw because of the pressure that Jalen Sneed brought in his face. He had to make a decision quick and get it out. I think you said earlier, you're not trying to throw into the ground in the middle of the field.
No,
that was just a big mistake that he made, and credit Jalen Sneed for making him make that mistake, and credit obviously Christian Gray for making a great play on the interception.
Yep.
So this one was in the Champions Lounge. Again, we touched on this a little bit earlier in the show, but the question is this: second quarter, Penn State settles for the field goal on 4th and goal at the 2. A play after Nick Singleton, the running back, drops a low pass. He was wide open though. Hit him in the hands.
It was wide open.
The pass from Drew Allar on 3rd down. The 4 points ultimately proved to be the difference in the game at the end of the game. All Notre Dame had to do was get a field goal there at the end. So the questions that were posed, number 1, would Marcus Freeman have gone for it? Number 2, was the field goal the right call at that point in the game? Let's start with the field goal and whether or not that was the right call before we talk about whether Marcus Freeman would do it.
I think I'm in the shoes of James Franklin as the Penn State head coach. Okay. I think he made the right call. Get the points. You need the points. I have no problem with that call. I was actually surprised to hear so much pushback after the fact, after the game was over, right? Because it was 0-0 at the time. It didn't feel like either offense was really moving the ball that well, and defenses were playing well. Get those points. Points are at a premium. I'm taking the points. I don't really have a problem with the call.
You know what I didn't like? Now, the play was there. Singleton should have, made the play. It should have been a touchdown. But
completely agree.
The way Penn State was running the ball, I'm shocked that they just didn't pound it 2 more times. Because, again, you're down there at the 2-yard line. I'm shocked that they didn't try to just pound it into the end zone a couple of times. The way they were controlling the line of scrimmage and running. So, I have more, probably a bigger issue with, just like the plays that they ran before that. I don't think it was the right. I get your rationale, like you're saying, take the points and all that. But if I'm at the 2, and again, the way I'm running the ball, I'm probably going to get at least a yard and, leave Notre Dame at the 1-yard line if I don't come up with the touchdown. And the way the defense was also playing at that point, I would feel pretty confident that worst case scenario, I'm going to force a punt. And, there's a great probability that I might even get a safety out of the deal and get a couple of points and then get a free kick and get the ball back again after that. So I think you go for it. Inside the 5, that deep, deep in the red zone, I think you go for it. And I think Marcus Freeman goes for it. I'll just go ahead and answer that right now. I think Freeman goes for it on 4th down at the 2. I don't think he settles for points in that case. What do you think?
Completely agree. I think he goes for it. And as the Notre Dame head coach, that's the right call. So it's 2 different scenarios. I'm trying to weigh all the scenarios being on both sidelines, right? Now, I've watched more Notre Dame than I've watched Penn State. I have a lot more faith in Notre Dame's defense than I do in Penn State's defense. They're a really good defense.
Sure.
I've got a lot of faith, and it goes along with what Notre Dame has done throughout the season. So, the defense is ready. They're ready to roll. They figured Marcus Freeman was going to go for they would be ready, and they would probably deliver. You know what I mean? So, absolutely, as a Notre Dame fan, I would want Marcus Freeman to go for it, and I think he does in that moment because he has a lot of trust in his defense. And so I think he does go for it. I really do.
Stymie says they're at the 2 because they were hit in the backfield and lost a yard or 2 and then dropped a pass. So you're going to get scared because you lost.
Yeah. I think he did get a little bit scared. I do. I think James Franklin did get a little bit scared because he didn't want to, because you're right. Worst case scenario,
that's why
you've got him pinned on the 2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
Again, if Singleton holds on, it's a moot point. And
correct.
You know,
no, absolutely.
We might be having a completely different discussion about this game today.
But I do think the chatter about being 1-14 going into this game, that's
got to get into your head.
Can't win without points. I can't win this game without points. I got to get points. You know what I mean? I think that's part of it. I really
that's
do.
Also a very old school, like the difference in, James Franklin patting Marcus Freeman 100%. On the head. Well, okay, Boomer.
Yeah.
How'd that work out? Like you keep your old school thought because me and Dan Campbell over here, we're going to go for 2, we're going to go for touchdowns on 4th down at the 2-yard line.
Right.
It's like, that's big difference in philosophy. And again, like Marcus Freeman talks about his guys being savages and, going back to the Conquerors, write history and all, like, well, it's all part of a mentality that Marcus Freeman has. He continuously shows confidence, and instills confidence in his players that they're going to go out there and make those kind of plays. He's not running away from that kind of stuff. And I absolutely think he goes for it, so.
Agreed.
Okay. Last question that we have queued up, unless we get any more in the chat before we wrap things up here in a little bit. Fill in the blank. It's blank that James Franklin is now 1-15 against AP top 5 teams as the head coach at Penn State.
It's very unfortunate for him because Big Game James is not going to be getting rid of that moniker anytime soon. And, a run here, getting in the national championship game really kind of quiets that down. Losing in this game really amps it up.
Mm-hmm.
And now he gets to sit through an entire offseason with that, that noise, frankly. Look, James Franklin's a good coach. He's not a great coach. He's a good coach. And he is kind of in that category of Brian Kelly for multiple reasons. But one of those reasons is you can't win the big one, and at least not at this level. And so that's a moniker he's going to have to live with until he doesn't. And he'll get opportunities because he plays in the Big Ten. He'll get opportunities moving forward. I don't know what his schedule looks like next year because I didn't look it up, but I'm sure he'll have opportunities. And he'll probably win 10 games again, and he'll probably get into the playoff, and he'll have opportunities, and he'll probably be done this time next year too.
And I also think it's significant that, while he tried to play his little mind games and put Marcus Freeman in a blender, he was essentially putting himself in a blender, with all those comments, because Marcus Freeman is the complete opposite of that. Marcus Freeman has probably coached 20% of the total games that James Franklin has coached in his career. And all Marcus Freeman does is go out and beat, top highly ranked teams,
right?
Just like what you were talking about a second ago. Notre Dame got double the amount of wins that they had in New Year's 6 bowls or whatever you want to call them now,
right?
That they had in 3+ decades. And he's also got double the amount of wins in the last 2 weeks against AP top 5 teams that James Franklin has. He's 1-15. And Notre Dame also, by winning that game last night, picked up their 4th win this season. James Franklin, Mr. Everybody should be in a conference and everyone should have to play in a conference championship game. Well, Notre Dame runs the conference that Penn State is in as of right now. That's their 4th win against a Big Ten team this season. Notre Dame, with that 4th win, has at least as many wins as 10 Big Ten teams had this season, including USC.
And I believe they have more ranked Big Ten wins than Penn State did.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yep.
So, look, Notre Dame's 6-0 against the Big Ten and the SEC this year. It's not too shabby.
Nope, not at all. 44T wants to know if Notre Dame has released any injury updates. That won't happen until next press conference, and we don't know when the next press conference is at this point. Next week at some point. And it's the way it works is, they don't release any updates until the day of Marcus
Right.
Freeman's.
And they're not,
press conference.
look, it's the day after. Like those guys are getting checked out. Like they're getting MRIs. They're doing all of the things. They're getting evaluated. There's nothing to release right now. So yeah, he always announces, it's the first thing he says when he steps to the mic for his press conference. And depending on how things shake out, and I mean, they're going to try to figure out who they're playing, right? They're not going to have a press conference until he knows who they're playing. The absolute earliest they would have a press conference is tomorrow. I'm guessing it'll be on Sunday.
Yeah, that's the absolute. I don't even think it'll be Sunday.
You don't even think it'll be Sunday?
No, I think Monday is the earliest because the game is not until January 20th.
True.
True. So like I was thinking it might be even, like if you set it out, like if Saturday, because like the way they've done it, they've timed it out so everything matches up to what like a typical game week would be. So like during the regular season, if the game is on Saturday, the press conference is on Monday. So if the game is on a Monday, the press conference could potentially be like, Wednesday or Thursday.
That's true.
Even.
Yeah, it just depends on when they're going to go down there. Are they going to go down there earlier than they would have in the past because they've got more day? Like they're, I don't know what their plan is. It's very clear that they have been treating these playoff games a lot more like away games as opposed to bowl games. You know what I mean? They're not going down there for 5 days like they have in the past. And they're not doing like the two teams go to a bowling alley together, or they do like a shopping trip with kids. You know what I mean? Like
go out to the,
the pomp and circumstance is not what it is at normal bowl games.
Yeah.
These are business trips, to steal a term from Brian Kelly. They're going down there a couple of days in advance, and they're going to play the football game. Since there isn't another one after this, I'm wondering when they're going to go down this time around.
I just want it noted that I think you've brought him up twice in this show, and I have not said his name once. So.
The one who shall not be named. I'll keep bringing him up because I was in Louisiana when Notre Dame shed the curse.
Scott L. Esquire, question. Do you guys think Estime contributed to the culture of that room to run like Love did to get that ball into the end zone?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great culture in the room. There's a great culture.
The great culture starts with McCullough.
I think it's more just like Jeremiyah Love is to use your word, Vince, is just a damn dog. And he was not going to be denied the end zone. He was going to get himself into the end zone, and he made sure of that.
If anything, the culture is created by McCullough. And look, Estime was a great player. There's no doubt about that. But I would put mine at McCullough's feet on this one.
Yep. Joe says Kyron ran like that. True story.
Good point. And they just had different styles, but he wasn't afraid of contact. That's for sure.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. All right, man. Well, that was fun getting to talk about that. Getting to talk about a college football playoff semifinal win. Getting to talk about going to the national championship game. It is crazy, man. Like
I'm so excited right now. I can't even. You sure you don't have a backup on next Sunday?
Go earlier.
Hit the road a little earlier. Yeah. Somebody you can get to man the ship for a game.
I don't know who that would be.
I don't either. But
got to do what we got to do.
I know. I know.
There's still priorities. Like there are different jobs, but there are still priorities.
Right.
Do what we got to do. Yeah, but we were pricing like we were looking at little van, not little vans, but
that's a big van.
Yeah. I don't know. We've been throwing out this whole RV proposal for a while, and I do remember the last time we talked about RVs, someone said they could hook us up. So if you're really someone who can hook us up, even if it's one of those like van size, smaller things, that's kind of what we're looking at.
I know.
Looking for.
Just
so
saying.
Hook us up.
That's right. That's right. I'm ready. I am so ready. This is going to be one of the longer weeks of the year. But I will
that's
say,
the thing. We've got a full week next
Yeah.
week. And then, you know, again, like the game is not until it's basically 10 days away from right now.
right. Yep.
Would you have watched the other semifinal tonight if Notre Dame hadn't won last night?
Not a chance. Nope.
I think I'm probably in the same boat.
Not a chance.
John says we need a party bus. That would be.
As long as John's driving, let's go.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Salty could fly in and drive us down.
Hey, as long as somebody else, I'm not a big fan of driving. So as long as somebody else is driving,
I know.
I'm good.
Vince is like, I'm really curious to see how this goes with Vince's ADD on this trip. So.
And I'm okay with driving on this trip because we're going to split it up, I would imagine, and things like that. But
no, you're doing most of the driving.
Look, I've driven.
I'm kidding.
I can do it. I just don't like it. That's all.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
But like I was telling you, my idea, like if Jesse ends up coming with us and we've got this oversized van thing, I've got my T-Mobile hotspot in the back. We could even just sit in the back of the van and do a live show for
on the
people.
Road.
Yeah.
I think that's happening. Like
that's automatic for the people, baby.
That's right. That's happening. So
especially since we're going to Atlanta. That's where that whole thing came from. I know you have no point of reference on that. REM album.
Yeah, nope.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here as always. A lot of great questions, a lot of great comments and conversation and super chats and everything else. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you as always. If you hadn't noticed, by the way, if you're a podcast listener, like the actual, just the audio podcast, we are now on the Believe platform.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything that Believe. It's been like a week that we've been with Believe, and everything I've seen so far has been great. So appreciate them. All right. Hit that like button before you leave. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review, and all that kind of great stuff. I believe upon further review, do you think it's tomorrow, Saturday?
It's not going to be tomorrow because he's traveling tomorrow. So
he's traveling tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely not going to be tomorrow. So I would assume sometime on Sunday.
All right. Sounds good.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Have a great weekend. I will be in Clemson, South Carolina, Sunday. Speaking of women's basketball, they won going away. I didn't think the second half was going to end last night, man. It's like so many fouls.
I stopped paying attention when they were up by a bunch.
Like I said out loud at one point, I said, I don't think the officials got the memo. They're not supposed to be calling fouls in the second half. They're just supposed to roll right through this. So it was a pretty resounding win, and they'll be heading to South Carolina next week. All right, that's going to do it. Enjoyed it as always. Thanks to Jesse. Thanks to Vince. Thanks to you, our loyal listeners and viewers, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great weekend. IB Nation Sports Talk.
Boom.